Hi, everybody. It's Dan Sullivan, and I'm with Strategic Coach. And this is the beginning of a collaboration podcast with Kelly Knight and Mark O'Donnell. We've been meeting monthly now for a couple of years, just talking about the collaboration between EOS and Strategic Coach. And we decided, why don't we do a podcast that goes out to all the Strategic Coach clients on my part, giving them a real feel for EOS and how EOS meshes perfectly with Strategic Coach. And Kelly and Mark are going to do the same on the EOS side with how Strategic Coach enables entrepreneurs to actually take more advantage of EOS by becoming Strategic Coach savvy. We had decided before the podcast today that we would just zero in on one coach tool, which is called the D.O.S, the D.O.S question, the D.O.S workshop. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Kelly, what's your take on what we're going to do here?
Well, there's nothing more important at the end of the day than helping those that we serve. So our target market, both of our target markets, are those entrepreneurs having somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 250 members and helping them really identify and get clear on what their dangers, opportunities, and strengths are. And then having the thinking tools and the thinking communities too. We both each have communities, Strategic Coach and EOS, having those communities to help navigate what we're experiencing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Yeah, I'm excited for this podcast, Dan, because I've been in Strategic Coach for the better part of a decade and implementing EOS with my clients before coming into the visionary role. I always found that companies running on EOS, when that visionary, that entrepreneur was in Strategic Coach and they had the mindsets and they understood 10x growth and how to run a truly great company with truly great thinking, those were the absolute best clients with the best results. So I'm really excited about that. And when we think about those D.O.S issues, eliminating those and taking advantage of those, it's super powerful.
Yeah. Just a little background on D.O.S. In roughly a week, I've been coaching entrepreneurs for 50 years. So I started in August of 1974, August 15th. What I noticed over a period of time was that the normal goals that other people think entrepreneurs have, particular type of goals, and they're mostly money-based goals. What I discovered more and more, because I did a lot of one-on-one coaching for the first 15 years, that there were sort of under the surface issues that were actually preventing them from achieving their money goals. And what I noticed is that they had some dangers that they weren't resolving. An example I'll give is COVID was a huge danger. I remember the subprime downturn in 07, 08, 09, that they had all sorts of issues, and money was certainly one of them. Cash flow was certainly one of them, but they had other issues. And it was peculiar to the entrepreneur. And they'd be thinking about these in the middle of the night, or they'd be thinking about these, when they were supposed to be having free days, they were thinking about their dangers. And then just to complete the acronym, but they also had opportunities. So they were either fearful at night or they were so excited at night they couldn't sleep. Okay, so they had big opportunities, but their frustration was that they weren't capturing the opportunities that were there. And then the other thing is they're very conscious that they have certain strengths. Their company has certain strengths, and they're not maximizing the strengths that they have. So I just started playing around with D.O.S, D.O.S. I've got some great stories about that as we go through the podcast. But Kelly, when you came across this, when you joined Coach, what kind of difference did it make thinking about these three issues rather than just normal above the board entrepreneurial goals?
Right. Well, so I am starting in October my 5th year in Strategic Coach. So it was before the pandemic that I had come in. was not long before what was about when Mark and I were beginning to work together as visionary and integrator. And so Mark had been in strategic coach for longer than I had. So I had that as a point of perspective. But being able to really simplify it down to dangers, opportunities, and strengths is just a very clarifying way of really managing our thinking. The world out there can be very complex. And unless you can really break it down into those things that we can capitalize and take advantage of. So for me, in my seat as the integrator at EOS Worldwide, it's just very clarifying and being a coach amongst like-minded people to sit and think together and to contemplate really how what we're doing in the world is making a difference or not, or what is scary. And when you can name the fear, which is something that Gino Wickman had taught me years ago, that's kind of what really D.O.S is to me. It's naming the fear or naming the opportunity. And so to go slow and go through that process, that's what I really gained from Strategic Coach. And then iterating every single quarter to come back and meet with those that we've really forged such a trusting relationship. You can go really deep into some of these topics in ways that you typically cannot in the normal course of running across people in your day to day. So that's what makes it super special for me.
Mm-hmm. Mark, we did a positive focus before we started the podcast today. And you were talking that you're just at the 1 year mark of putting the revised real version of the software out into the EOS network. You were feeling a great deal of happiness really with the way it's gone, the second crack at it. But what was the D.O.S issue if you go back to the danger issue of when the beta version didn't work? What was the danger there as you were experiencing it?
So when we think about the danger of us as a training company, as a coaching company, we're really, really good at just a handful of things. And that's really training implementers to go work with their clients, creating great content. And we did not take building software really seriously as a separate discipline. We thought that we could go and outsource it.
You missed class the day that they were teaching implementing new software.
We did. And we just thought it was going to be simple. We thought it was going to be easy. All we have to do is digitize the stuff, the paper that we have, and it's going to be great and it's going to work. And we just have to find someone who can do some coding. And of course, the mindsets, like if you peel it all apart, I quote, I think it's Mark Andreessen who said that software is going to eat the world. And you had some conversations with us about that because normally when you do a project, and at least in our company, you do a project, it would be finished, tidy bow. We actually, Gino taught us the tidy bow concept. You finish it, you deliver it over. But software is you do a project and then there's an addition and then there's another addition. It takes up your whole building lot and then it takes up your county. And then it takes up your state. It's a project that never, ever ends. And that's a mindset shift for an organization like ours that when you peel it back, it's a people issue at the root of it, but it's a mindset that really was the biggest danger that we missed.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about right at the beginning of our session today was that one of the real dangers is that you have sunk cost. You have money sunk cost, you have effort sunk cost, you have time sunk cost, and you have reputation sunk cost. That isn't one danger, that's 4 different dangers that you have there. And there was opportunity cost to it too, because if you were doing that, you weren't doing something else. So what was the thinking process, Kelly, as you went through that? I remember because we had a number of monthly shakedown.
We definitely did. You got to see it unfold live time,
Yeah.
Dan, is what we did. Well, we really used Experience Transformer to just get clear on what had gone wrong, really to again, just isolate with laser focus exactly the things that we had learned that we had made mistakes on. And how do we then pivot that to do differently? We could have done different things. We could have said, we're just not going to do this anymore and moved on and did something else. But we really believed with conviction that this was something that we wanted to do. So it was really about going back and saying, how do we reverse engineer this and do this differently? And in the spirit of who, not how, that was a huge mistake on our part. There was some hubris that entered in where we thought we're EOS, who knows EOS better than EOS worldwide? But that has absolutely nothing to do with how you take EOS, which is a simple, practical set of tools and a process for helping entrepreneurs get what they want, then transforming that into a digital component that is an interface and way people can learn is something totally different. So we really had to think about what went wrong, get clear on that, and also who do we need? Not the how, who do we need to be able to move forward and to be able to deliver on the promise that we have? And we had to really be very clear with our communities. There's 27 different stakeholders that we serve at EOS Worldwide. We know them all. We know them all really well. And we owed them clarity and also, a commitment that we would do better. So it was being open and honest about that. To your point, we're very transparent about that. And so we felt like that was an important part of our moving forward.
Yeah. We had a similar experience in the 90s and we lost $1 million. This was around 1996. And I remember we had a software company, outside software company we were working with. It was called the Pocket Coach, and it was like a big sheet of paper. It was and it had about 20 different things that as entrepreneurs were going through their workshops, I'd say, let's take a half hour and fill in 5 or 6 of these, and they would fill it in, and then we would talk about it. We kept getting requests, can we have this in digital form? We had never given any thought to that. Most of Strategic Coach is paper. I mean, we have it now that people with their iPads, they can just take a picture and they can fill it in. They can make their own software on it. But this was ancient history. This was in the ancient times. And I remember we told the software company, said, this isn't working. We just don't have enough adoption on the part of our clients for this. And, we're spending an awful lot of money for basically 10% of our client base here. And it isn't going to grow. I can tell that it's just not going to grow. And I wasn't the key decision maker here, but I was part of it. And Babs and her team got together and she said, we're just going to walk. And the software company came back to us and said, once you start software, you can't stop software.
It's true.
No, you cannot.
It's true.
Which at least told us what their business model was. And I said, no, we're going to stop. And we did the same thing. We wrote a letter, and the most valuable part of the experience was the letter we wrote where we were saying, look, we're going to walk. And our clients came in and said, that really takes guts. That really takes guts. I really admire you for this, that you could just walk. And they said, isn't there anything salvageable? And we said, no. It was wrong road, wrong direction, And I think walking away from sunk costs is one of the most difficult decisions that entrepreneurs can possibly make. And that's sunk costs in any part of their life, not just their business life. So an entrepreneur may have all the opportunity in the world, and you can't understand why they're not taking advantage of their opportunity, is because they have something in their life that's a sunk cost that isn't working. And the only solution, I mean, you can have short suffering and you can walk, or you can have long suffering and you walk with a lot of pain.
Yeah,
that's right.
So this is a really interesting topic for D.O.S. issues, because when did the danger in your situation start to turn into an opportunity? What was the thinking process that you went through? Because opportunity is about excitement. So danger is about fear. Opportunity is about excitement. And strengths is about confidence. You already have the strength. So what was the transition phase, the transformation phase then? Because I know it was painful because I talked to you every month.
Yeah.
You really were. Mark, I wonder if you want to tell the story.
It's all recorded.
It is. We could play that back. Those would be fun days.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, what about July 27th? How could I forget the date? July 27th. Do you remember what we were doing that year?
Which year was that? Well, before we get into that, though, Dan, what I would say is another coach tool is VODA, which is vision, opposition, transformation, and action. And we were just 100% committed to the vision. And it's sort of like breakfast, right? The chicken is involved and the pig is committed. And so we were just totally committed to using software to spread EOS throughout the world as fast as the internet could take us. And so we were just completely and utterly committed to do that. And we have a concept we call EOS purity, which really is the very, very simple tools without complexity, and understanding that entrepreneurs like ourselves like to make things a little bit more complex than they need to be. And so we want those tools to be as pure as they could be. And we knew that digitizing and distributing our system throughout the world, that software was really going to be the only way to do that. And so we were just fully and utterly committed to doing that. So it was just a matter of those obstacles, that opposition that rose up, those dangers that rose up, is simply how do you navigate it? How do you
Transform.
Yeah. Right? How do you transform as an organization? And so that, talking about the mindsets earlier, is really how do you become a software company? What are the different mindsets? What are the different processes, people that are required to make that transformation and take action on that so we can achieve what that vision is? That's kind of what I would set the preface to, how we were thinking about it at that time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The other thing that comes across from your description is that you actually had to create a team around you.
We did.
Of people. We were using an outside team. Now we have a tech team. We have 20 people in our tech team. Mm-hmm. We can create this type of product in a matter of a couple of weeks now, because technology has advanced so much in the last 20 years, but we have massive capability. And I think that looking back, we had maybe 2 tech people at that time, and they were fully engaged in just normal business. So what kind of team came out of this that's a permanent gain?
So the first time, this is one of the learnings. So this July 27th infamous sort of defining moment was Mark and I had this moment where I was visiting my aunt and uncle on the Long Island Sound in Connecticut, and Mark and I are on the phone and we're working on QA for this software, the beta one, the original one. And it was this defining moment where I thought, this is terribly wrong. I am not the right who, clearly. I'm an integrator. I'm not a software engineer, QA specialist, or any of that. And it was one of those moments where we walked out of there thinking, okay, this group that we had hired, we had also outsourced the work. Okay, it was not internal to EOS worldwide. We also learned that in trying to transcribe what EOS is to an outsourced group that's therefore trying to build our own tools and concepts and processes, just the whole thing was entirely wrong. And because there was a disconnect in understanding, Mark and I were trying to come in to try to bridge the gap, but it was altogether wrong. So what that then really set off in us is this realization that we had to change our entire group of humans around us. So we basically terminated our agreement with that other group. And we said, we really need to go back to basics and figure out if this is salvageable. It was not. We went through a whole vetting process, had 2 independent parties come in, and then it was, are we ready to do this again with the right set of who's after we had gone through that process? So once we got the right people around us, though, the ones that are truly meant to do this work, and we brought them in-house so that they could learn EOS really from the ground up, that was really the realization that that's what we should have done to begin with. Mm-hmm. But that's the learning process. So today, that's what it looks like. So we have a product leader and a technology leader for whom they've done this before. We have a CTO who was the head of Chipotle and went through their revolution of how they had gone from where you go in and you get a burrito at the counter to ordering it and getting it delivered and all of that good stuff that we have in our world today. But so that's someone who's been through this kind of thing that we've been through. And so it's exciting to see that we have the right who's on our team today, but boy, was it painful.
Yeah, and it points out that without the setback, you wouldn't have the capability, that the capability came out of transforming. The danger, and this is where the strength comes in, you now have a real strength, real capability. Just a little story, during 07, 08, 09, what happens when you have a financial setback, and we might be having another one, based on what happened yesterday in the worldwide stock markets. And the other thing is we're in a presidential year, and I always have noticed that marketing gets a little tougher during a presidential year in the United States. And what I mean by that, everybody's holding on to their money because they're waiting for the first week of November. Okay. So the decisions around buying now, writing checks right now hold. So I did my whole quarter. I had about 200 entrepreneurs that I was coaching. And I said, how many of you, your cash safe for the next quarter? Like if you don't sell anything over the next quarter, how many of you are okay? And most of my clients are. They have good reserves. Said, here's what I want you to do. Pick out 10, make it 10 or make it 20. I mean, do at least 10. And if you're going beyond 10, then do 20. Invite the person personally to breakfast, lunch, or dinner and have it go for an hour, hour and a half. And during that hour and a half, don't talk about yourself. Don't talk about your company. Don't talk about anything you're offering in the marketplace. Simply take the person through the D.O.S questionnaire and simply ask them, if this was a year from now and we were having this discussion, what has to happen over the next year now, period of real uncertainty, that you feel really happy with the progress you made? Okay. And this is our clients talking to their clients. Okay. And then say, well, what are the three biggest dangers that you have right now that have to be transformed? They have to be eliminated over the next year. And they talk it through. And then opportunities, that if you eliminate the dangers, then what are the opportunities? Three opportunities. Then they did that. And then strengths. So what do you have already going for you that you can just utilize in eliminating the danger and capturing the opportunity? And it was great. And first of all, people really loved the experience. They came back the next quarter, and all of them had a record quarter. That quarter that they didn't think anything was going to happen, the most happened. And we had a discussion, and I said, nobody spends present money because that's already spent. What's needed is future money. And so what you did, you gave them a new future, and they had the money for that future. They didn't have any money for the present, but they had money for the future. So every time there's been a little hiccup or obstacle, and I'm going to have my coaches do this over the next quarter now, because I'm noticing not only is it politically uncertain, it may be economically uncertain. And everybody draws back. They hold on, and they don't make decisions. And I said, we got to go forward and have them. So you have to give everybody a brand new future during the next quarter.
Yeah.
What do you think about that related to your experience?
I think that the D.O.S conversation really strips down to the most essentials of what a business is and their unique value proposition in the world, the things that they do really, really well. Not only the unique ability of their company, but the unique ability of the person, the leaders of that business. We've done over 6,000 D.O.S conversations with our target market over the last 2 years. And when you look at those in uncertain times and in good times, they have their dangers are a little bit shorter and the opportunities are a little bit bigger and the strengths relatively stay the same. In uncertain times, the dangers get a lot longer, their opportunities shrink, and the strengths stay the same. And what I've been finding when answering the D.O.S conversation in uncertain times, it's really a de-risking of everything that is happening in their business, because they start to apply their strengths, what they're very, very good at, to the present opportunities. And most often I find that those are timeless. Those are timeless things. And then the dangers, they're the basic same dangers that always exist in every business all the time. And they start to recognize that if they amplify those strengths, take advantage of those opportunities, the dangers just start to melt away or mean a little bit less. So I think it's just a wonderful way to kind of strip it down to the timeless essentials of who they are and who they serve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would add that it always starts with the entrepreneur. And yet what I'm able to see is how significant the understanding of the dangers, opportunities, and strengths are to the larger team. So when we're naming what these are, even if it is a difficult time in the market, if we're naming those dangers, it does remove that fear more than not understanding what those dangers may be and what it means to the overarching team too. So when times are scary times, I think the D.O.S is very clarifying and actually helps give people permission to have those tough conversations about things that they're thinking about. But if we just hid them or swept them under the rug and did not shine a light on them, I think as entrepreneurs growing big teams that are doing wonderful things in the world, we have to remember that it's all about bringing humans with us on that journey. So I think the D.O.S is great from the entrepreneur, but all the way through the organization.
Yeah. A phrase I came up with, this is a long time ago. I said, the problem is never the problem. So people are kind of paralyzed with the problem. I said, the problem is not the problem. The problem is they don't even know how to think about the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say the same applies. That's sort of the danger side, but I think it also applies to I've seen people just as much derailed by a great opportunity as by a great danger.
I would 100% agree.
Yeah, no doubt.
It removes them from the present. They're pulled away about what they can actually be doing right now.
Right. Right. And having an impact filter around any one of those D.O.S issues is just a great habit forming thing for all of us. But also, at EOS, we do encourage the use of impact filters for everybody. It's for everyone, not just for entrepreneurs. And the more that we can get our teams thinking about what can be possible, what's the bigger, brighter future of the D.O.S look like, the better those ideas just percolate and you've got healthier teams too. So I think it's an incredibly awesome thing that you've created, Dan, and the ability to give everybody to think about that thinking is just, it's the hardest work we all do. That's why so few people do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the S here. What strengths have you discovered? And I'm just going to relate it to the software project. What strengths do you now know you had that you didn't know, especially on July 27th?
Yeah. What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think the strength of our EOS implementer community and the way that they work with their clients, the results that they produce with EOS pure tools, really, really simple tools. And that has translated really, really well into the software. Understanding, though, that the core essence of those tools, the results that they produce, gets translated just a little bit differently into software. And so now we have the strength and the capability to express those tools and distribute those tools into different channels that we didn't have before. And so we've developed some new strengths on really going back to the beginning days of when Gino Wickman, our founder, was sitting with entrepreneurs with their D.O.S issues and testing out tools and pulling levers. We had to go back to that and that mindset of just really quick iteration. You pull a lever. If they smile, you keep it. If they frown, you throw it out. Really taking that, because we've kind of got into a world in which we knew what made us successful, but we didn't really know why those tools worked or why it was successful. And so all that kind of genetic encoding that exists inside the business has really been refined and now is being brought out once again. So I think those are just a few of the strengths that some we've possessed for quite a while and some new ones that we can take into the future.
Yeah.
And Dan, I would love to say there's so many things. I could do a whole episode just on this one thing, all the learnings and the strengths. But I want to talk about like a critical who. So Mark O'Donnell, as our visionary, for those that may not know him well, he holds so many different hats. He's been an entrepreneur of his own right many, many times over before becoming an EOS implementer, before becoming a coach, head coach, and now visionary. And so there's something very unique in his being the who during this evolution of EOS Worldwide's life cycle, that his capability to do what's required by being able to pivot and shift through innovation like software development and to learn from those mistakes and to come through that. I think his perspective is very unique. God-given talent to just navigate through these really interesting times that we've had. So I really credit Mark as being a part of that strength. There are lots of other great who's too, but just highlighting one is to be able to say if it had been any other visionary who didn't understand EOS and all the other things that were going into what was going to culminate to where we got, I think that we wouldn't have made it. I really don't. It would have looked very different. So I say, when you think about the who's that you surround yourself with, we had gaps and we had to find those individuals. But for Mark also being able to see the whole picture was pretty cool.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. You're a cool guy, Mark.
Well, now I'm going to hide under the desk here, so I appreciate it.
We have another concepting coach called the four C's. The four C's are that when you create something new, it starts with a commitment that you're going to create something new. But when you make the commitment, you don't have the capability and you don't have the confidence. So, what's required as the second C, first C being commitment, the second C is courage. You have to go through a period of courage. Okay. And I'm of the belief that there's a catalytic effect that happens when you combine commitment and courage, it actually creates the capability.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the capability didn't exist because it was brand new. So it wasn't on a shelf somewhere. You actually had to create the commitment. And you get confidence, the fourth C. So you have commitment, you have courage, you have capability. And the fourth C is confidence. Okay. And confidence is a reward for having done the first three.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that confidence then puts you in a position to make a bigger commitment.
Love it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're just back from a meeting where you got your first year result on how well the software is done in the first year. But that capability that exists today bears no resemblance to the one that you were trying to create the first time through.
Not even close.
Right.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another part of that understanding too, with the four C's and the capability is knowing more clearly when we need a different who
Yep.
for something that we're trying to do
Yeah.
and not trying to figure out the how with ourselves or with the existing team. So that book, Who Not How, was never more clarifying for us than through that experience. And, 10X is all about the thinking and the mindset of those on the team. And so we really had 10X is easier than 2X really is true in that you've just got to get the right mindsets on the team doing the right work.
Mhm.
So not everybody is built for being part of the technology ride. That's the thing that's, another part of our strength is that we have a greater understanding of that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've just zeroed in on DOS today as a tool. And I'm just wondering what's occurred to you since our discussion of possibly new uses of DOS that you hadn't seen before, or renewed use of DOS in a way that you hadn't seen before. Kelly?
That's a great question. I'm really thinking we're about to head into our quarterly, our EOS Worldwide Quarterly for the leadership team next week. And I think, Mark, now is a good time for us to rethink. We typically use DOS at our annual, which is in February. But because of our growth and all the things that we're transforming, it makes me think we should really be looking at that every single quarter. So the frequency at which we're looking at that for just our own team, I think is important to do that more often than how we've been doing that. And I think that's going to be transformative and being much more clear in the rocks that we set, the goals that we're setting, and what we're achieving.
Yeah. And for me, the way I'm thinking, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit, and I am a 10 quick start, so I'm usually thinking out loud and you're experiencing at the same time I am.
10 quick start, big deal.
Well, same as you, Dan. Thinking out loud and, it just comes out. But when thinking about DOS as the refining mechanism, and I think Dan and you and Strategic Coach have been great first principles thinkers for a really long time. The ability to just tear things apart to its core essentials and build them back one at a time. And I think under pressure in uncertain times, that DOS thinking will have that refining, that first principles way of thinking about your business, your team, your department, yourself, and that it's going to change over time. And it'll give you the ability to build back to your core essentials, to the things that work, to have that refined, to stop doing the things that you may have strayed in thinking that you could do, but shouldn't have because the risk was lower. But when the risk is higher, you're going to revert right back to the real opportunities, leveraging your real core strengths. So I think just as Kelly, you said, kind of creating the context, the container of DOS to then go do that work is quite powerful.
Yeah. And it really works in all sorts of different settings. About 8 years ago, I had a client who had a very successful entrepreneurial business, but he had a chance to run for the U.S. Congress. This is the House of Representatives. So he's been in the program for 15 years. And he just had lunch with me. And I said, since you're doing it for the first time and you're not a career politician, you're already in your 40s. So this isn't something, that you're planning when you were 17 or 18. It just occurred to you, you have an opportunity. So we showed him how to use D.O.S to win an election. Okay. And what he did, and it's very interesting. We said, I want you to have meetings with people who are not in your party. In other words, they're in the opposite party. And I want you to ask them the D.O.S question about the state that you're in, because it's really about the state. And just ask them, I'm running for Congress. I'm in this party and I'm running. So he did it with 20 individuals. And these are people who have influence. They would be people on the other side of the aisle who have influence. They could be editors of newspapers. They could be presidents of TV stations. They could be president of the university, but people who had enormous influence. And now he said, if we were having this discussion, it was 2 years from now, and you're looking back over the 2 years, what has to happen for you to feel happy with the progress in this area of the state, because it's a part of the state, not the whole state. And then what are the dangers we have? What are the opportunities we have? And he did that. Then he did it with his home team. He did it with all the influencers on the other side. He started off with the tough ones first, and then he went with the people who did it. And he was running in the primary to get the seat against 7 people, 7 veterans who had been in politics before. And he took 60% of the total vote. The other 6 got it.
Wow.
And then he put together his platform just based on the D.O.S issues.
Wow.
These are the 3 biggest dangers, these are the opportunities and strengths. The next time he ran unopposed because he was the sitting member. He ran unopposed, and he took 65% of the final vote. He beat the other person 65-35. And then the third time he ran unopposed. Nobody even ran against him.
Wow.
And he renewed the D.O.S every 2 years. He went through and did the D.O.S. The other thing is he stayed in touch with the people. And he had all these people on the other side that he said, I just want to tell you how we're doing. We had this discussion. This is how we're doing. And then 2 years ago, the Senate seat came open and he ran, and he had the same kind of results. He took 65% against 7 primary opponents. He was down 6 points when the main election started, and he won by 6 points.
Wow.
But the other thing that's interesting is that he's known in the U.S. Senate. He's in the U.S. Senate now. He's known as the person that if you're in this party and you want to send a message to the other party, you send it through him. He understands.
Very good.
Wow. That's really something.
I think that's power in Washington. If somebody always talks to you so that you can talk to somebody else, I think that constitutes power. But it's usefulness, too. He's just very, very useful. He's not a wild-eyed partisan or anything like that. He will listen to you and understand how you're looking at things, which I think is the key. And the interesting thing in EOS, you're talking to 2 people here. There's the implementers with their clients, and then there's your entrepreneurs with their clients.
That's right.
It's the same thing with our coaches and our clients. So I'm really very, very gratified by your experience and how you've expressed the experience. It was wonderful.
Well, we're grateful for you and Strategic Coach. It really has helped, since Mark and I both have the privilege to be part of the coach community. It really is just life-changing.
Absolutely.
Can't say enough about it. Yeah. Thank you for the gift of today. And it's really fun to be with you.
Okay. You're the moderator next time.
Yes.
Kelly, you're up.
I'm up. Okay.
Kelly, you're up now.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm already thinking about what it's going to be. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. I think we did very, very well for our first crack at this.
Not too bad.
It was great. I really enjoyed it.
It was fun.
This wasn't a beta.
No. We've had conversations before.
You're the judge of that. You're the best judge of whether it's a beta, Dan. So if you say it's not a beta, it's not a beta.
This is the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
It's awesome.
All right. Thank you very much.